Hello, folks. Hopefully, you won't be able to hear whatever is going on outside. It sounds like someone is chanting. So, we are joined by special guest Miss Dora over here, who decided to come, deign herself to come here. This is after last week we managed to find a very nice, cat tree in the trash room of our building, and we were very excited about it. And we tried it in multiple places, and she really did not care. So it is now gone on to someone who has 8 cats, who is a foster cat mom. So, yes. Amanda says, "Oh, yes, hi, Lily. We're happy to see you, too." I mean, Dora seems to be very involved in whatever bath is going on, but it's lovely to see everyone. How is everybody doing? And, I feel like she's plotting. Like, that's a plotting face, so... Latitude. I bet that's why it was in the trash room. No, I mean, it was a great cat tree. So she we wiped it down with like the pheromones getting rid of stuff and like vacuumed it and everything. And it wasn't a carpeted one. I think I showed it on the live stream last week. I really can't keep track anymore. But yeah, anyway, she just couldn't really care. She liked one thing on it, which was like a tiny little circle coaster. Okay, she's getting really cute. Yeah, it was a very nice looking one. Although now I found a cat trees that attach to the wall that make your cat look like they're in a spaceship, and now I want one of those. So I went from the free one that we gave away to now wanting a new thing that costs money. So that's great. So I thought we could do a little check-in about where people are at, but like huge news broke today in the US. So the kind of more chill live stream that I have planned, I mean, it'll still be chill, but I was planning on like talking about how to like make new plans for your money this year. Except that like Trump signed a bunch of executive orders a couple hours ago, an hour and a half ago, and now there's a ton of stuff. So, but let's do the little map thing. Is the map thing running? So type into chat where you're at in the world, and it will pop up on the screen, and we'll be able to see where people are at. It's always very exciting, I think, to see this. Dora's really cute back there. She's just chilling. I like seeing them like all spread out, little pins on the map. Well, we have appropriately covered all of the US time zones. That's pretty great. Oh, Erin is reminding me that, I like that it put Canada in the just middle of Canada. Similar to Australia, it puts it in the middle of the country, which is where no one lives. So we are really curious to see if this works. If everybody has access to the thumbs up button, we have kind of seen that possibly if everybody hits the thumbs up button at the same time, it like pushes the live stream out to other folks. So I'm really curious to see if that happens. Welcome. It's lovely to see you all. All right. Should I introduce you to the donut before I introduce you to whatever the heck Trump did today? I will show this off. It's gorgeous. Like, this is like the prettiest donut probably I think we've ever had. So it's raspberry Pop-Tart flavored. And I gotta tell y'all, it was extremely challenging. So it's Pop-Tart. It's like Pop-Tart crust on there. And then it's like raspberry, but it's supposed to all be Pop-Tart flavored. I didn't even know there were raspberry Pop-Tarts, but I think they can do whatever they want and except maybe possibly use the name Pop-Tart technically. However, I'm really excited about it. As I mentioned last week, all of the new flavors are out for the new season. So there's like 14, I think, new ones that just came out. So it was actually really incredibly challenging to decide which donut to get today, and I just went for like the prettiest one. They have one that they have a bunch that I'm really excited about. They have a pretzel one, And they have another one that is a like... I like everybody's just putting thumbs up in the chat. No, you have to do like the actual thumbs up. um, the other one that they have is like, it looks like an everything bagel, but it's a savory donut with like cream cheese. I don't really know what's going on. I don't really understand how it's not just a bagel if it's a savory donut, but I guess it's like still deep fried. I don't really get. Yes, the like button, not just like thumbs up in the chat. I wasn't being very clear. We're just really curious to see if that happens. Also, for once, I'm talking about something that's actually like trending. So maybe it'll help get some other people into the chat. Although people, if they did see it on their page, they're like, why is she talking about donuts? It's not actually a giant donut. It's like a normal sized donut. It's just that I was holding it up to the screen. I think it has more to do with the type of lens we're using, but it's like a normal sized donut. It's a normal sized donut. It's maybe like slightly larger than normal, but normal sized for the ones I get. I love that we have this kitten is just sitting there and like participating in the live stream in a chill way and forcing me to show off my arts cart of all of the pens that I own. All right, let's jump into the Trump stuff and just like get it over with because it contains a lot. So as I mentioned last week and the week before and the week before, the Democrats and the Republicans still can't agree on this week. Last Saturday, they were having the staffers meet up, and then Monday they were having more meetings, and they just kept having a bunch of meetings to try to reach a new coronavirus relief bill. So the original one was called the CARES Act, and the Democrats had put together like 7 weeks ago now, had put together an act called the HEROES Act. They love their acronyms. The HEROES Act that would extend the unemployment through the extra $600 a week of unemployment through the end of the year, extend a bunch of things in it, but it also was like a comprehensive bill that addressed a bunch of different things around coronavirus. And that included like making sure people were going to be capable of voting by mail, dealing with schools opening back up, providing money to state and local governments, which most of them have been very taxed by this. And that ended up being almost $1 trillion after countless weeks of negotiation. I mean, it's countable. That's a slight hyperbole. After a lot of negotiation, they still were $1 trillion away from the Senate Republicans plan, which was called it had another acronym in name. Is it the Health Act? I don't know. It's another one. The HEAL Act. It's the HEAL Act. Those ended up being $1 trillion apart. As you can probably guess, the House Democrats bill was the one that was more expensive. It was also a lot more comprehensive. And the big thing was that, like, there was some pushback of, like, hey, this $600 a week is expiring at the end of July. And that's what's keeping a lot of people in their houses and, like, keeping a lot of people out of poverty right now. And they were unwilling to budge on the extra $600 a week. And they also didn't want to pass one of the proposals, which was a short-term bill that only dealt with the unemployment side of things. And the House Democrats' argument was like, there's way too much stuff that we have to deal with, and we're not in this to pass a bunch of short-term bills, which was fairly valid considering that they had made their original bill 6 weeks ago, passed it, and still hadn't even gotten to any kind of negotiation point. And so the argument was like, our economy is in really bad shape around the world, but especially the US right now, relative to where we were. Unemployment is spiraling. There's kind of this expectation that like we shouldn't be passing like one-off things. That being said, there are a lot of people for which that extra $600 a week is the only thing keeping them in their homes and getting them food. Because, as previously discussed, if you're receiving the minimum amount for unemployment, in which in some states, even if you qualify as a freelancer, the only money that you're getting is that extra $600 a week. For some people, it dropped to $0 this week, even though they still had a valid claim. And that's because, depending on the different state, how it was arranged. So Trump essentially said, okay, children, you can't get it together, so I'm going to do this stuff by executive order. And he passed 4 executive orders this afternoon, and there are a bunch of components. 3 of the components are things that you would completely expect. Essentially, if you remember, part of the original CARES Act is that federal student loans right now are at 0% interest, and your loan payments are automatically deferred. That was set to end on October 15th, and they've now pushed that out to the end of the year. So, she eating the washi tape? Oh, these are ribbons, not washi tape, so it's even, more dangerous. So the first executive act, pushes that out till the end of the year. And that's really good news for a lot of people. And those student loan payment deferrals don't have a really big impact on people personally, but do not have overall a huge impact on the the economy, right? It doesn't wreck our federal budget. One interesting thing is that you actually can't get straight information out of the federal government over how much profit they make on student loan interest payments, but that's a different story. The CBO rolls it in there, so we don't actually know how much they're making off the absolutely outrageous amount of interest that they are charging U.S. taxpayers for education. Anyway, Latitude says, wait, this is actually incredible and good. I understand that it is hard to believe that Trump's executive bill could be a good thing. What I am going to say is the payroll tax holiday is the thing that we kind of don't expect. So he did extend the unemployment benefits through the end of the year, that extra unemployment benefits. So that includes now $400 a week. So instead of being $600 a week, it is $400 a week extra on top of whatever you qualified for. And all of the original provisions are still true. That means that you get an extra 13 weeks, even if you've previously exhausted your 26 weeks of unemployment, which in most states is the most you can use in 2 years. All of kind of the normal things. That being said, there are some people for which 26 weeks plus 13 weeks equals 3/4 of a year. And 75% of a year is March through December. And at the current rate that we're looking at in the US, it really seems like a lot of jobs are not going to be back by December 31st. So unemployment benefits, extra $400 a week, part of the executive order. The student loan payment deferrals, and they also extended some of the protections, the eviction protections. However, the eviction protections were extremely vague. And there was a promise that people were going to be able to get some kind of financial assistance, both landlords and renters. But it's totally a mess. So rural says only if your state has $100 of it to kick in. If your state is broke, you get nothing. Yes, that is a very good point. Thank you for reminding me. So the extra $400 a week, 80% of it is going to be paid by the federal government, but then 20% is going to have to be paid by the state unemployment systems. So this is also one of those things where I think there's a possibility that Congress tries to make adjustments. This could be really challenging for states that don't have enough money in their unemployment coffers. So that is one of the things that is going to be frustrating. Thank you for bringing that up. Very helpful. I don't think that you're going to get nothing if your state doesn't have that 20%, but I don't know how that's going to play out. I think there's a possibility that there's going to be some sort of gap. So the I would, but as it currently stands, it's pretty much the exact, like, it's pretty much the exact same thing as before, presumably. But yeah, there's a possibility you won't get anything if your state doesn't have enough money in their unemployment coffers. Also, one thing I should note is that even if your state is broke, it might have money in the unemployment system. So if your state has been broke, but has like a large share of their workforce engaged in jobs that pay into the unemployment system and has had relatively low unemployment in the past couple years, they might actually have a lot of money sitting around in unemployment that, like, it has nothing, because quite often those are separate parts of state budgets. So, one thing I've mentioned before is that states have to balance their budget. They cannot run a deficit. They don't have the advantage of printing money like the federal government does, which is why we run a deficit on the federal level. That being said, there are some states who end up bankrupt or broke because essentially accounting errors or corruption. But technically, all states do have to balance their budget, which means they have to get in the money that they send out. So, okay. So, the big thing, the big questionable thing, I will also say there's a lot that's questionable. These executive orders are incredibly short, and there's a lot of things that were kind of promised verbally by Trump in the press conference that don't seem to have a real plan. And one of these plans is the payroll tax holiday. So this is the big question mark that a lot of people are like, what is a payroll tax holiday? What is this about? So it helps you 0% if you are currently unemployed. So there's that. What it is people that currently are paying Social Security and Medicare taxes, which amount to 6.8% and 1.2% for most people. So altogether, that's 8%. They essentially are going to be able to... it's not going to be able to. It seems like you can't opt out of it. The Trump's executive order says that no one from August 1st, so retroactive to August 1st, through the end of the year, that normally pays that, needs to pay that, as long as their income is under $100,000 a year. And initially when it came out, some of the reporting was families below $100,000 a year, but this is not based on your adjusted gross income. This is based on your paycheck at that job. So if your household income is greater than $100,000 a year, and this is your gross income, so it isn't your adjusted gross income. This isn't after your 401ks. This isn't after your 401k. This isn't after taxes. This isn't after your employer-sponsored deductions. This is your total gross income. If that income is less than $4,000 per biweekly paycheck, so if you do get paid biweekly, that's helpful, or semi-monthly. You should generally know if you make less than $100,000 gross, but it's per employee the way it is written. They don't have to pay Medicaid and Social Security, or Medicare and Social Security taxes. So it's essentially like an 8% raise through the end of the year. This sounds really magical and great, except that a tax holiday technically means that money needs to be paid back at some time soon. So, yes, Daniel was saying, some are saying the taxes are only deferred, not suspended. Any clarification of this? So, technically, yes. The way this is written is that it is deferred, and at some point it will have to be paid again. However, the way the executive order is written is it essentially tells the Office of the Treasury, try to figure out how to forgive these. Also, Trump has been wanting a payroll tax holiday forever. He's been pushing. He tried to get it in the Republican bill. He just thinks it's a great idea. There are key issues to this, which I will get into. But he also pledged that if he gets reelected in November, he would make it permanent. I don't know what his plan is to fund Social Security or Medicare after that, but yeah. Rural says per employee or per job. So it is done on the job level. So it would be per employee's paycheck. So if you technically make, $120,000 a year, but you make $99,000 at one of those jobs and $21,000 at the other, they both technically are going to get this payroll tax holiday. So, many things are extremely unclear about this. This seems to have been written in about 10 minutes. So there's also some real, racist kind of political language in it where Trump makes the point of specifying that COVID-19 came from the People's Republic of China. At least he didn't call it Wuhan virus. But these are executive orders, so they are official documents, but they are have some feelings. So, does that make sense about the per job? So the way it is written as of currently, and like I said, nobody can really speak about technically. So Joshua asks, what about people on disability? If you don't currently, most people on disability do not currently pay Social Security and Medicare taxes, and so it does not help you at all. If you don't have income that pays Social Security and Medicare taxes, which usually disability and Social Security income are exempt from those things, then this doesn't help you in any way, shape, or form. So I don't understand how it's a substitute for a stimulus bill, but cool. Rural says written in 10 minutes without a Sharpie. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. Amanda says makes as much sense as anything written by Trump. Yeah, I think it is incredibly frustrating to see kind of how quickly this was thrown together, considering that the administration, the Trump administration, had input on the Republican bill, and I don't know if it has something to do, I am not a legal scholar, so I don't know if part of the reason that the executive orders are so vague has to do with the fact that they have to be written as executive orders and not as a congressional bill. The other thing I will point out is that Trump has pledged to make these things permanent if he gets reelected in November, but he doesn't actually have the power to make a payroll tax holiday public, permanent. It has to be done by an act of Congress. So yeah, which is there was essentially tax cuts and tax benefits done during the recession by the Obama administration, but it had to be done by Congress. They had to work with Congress. So Claire says, I'm getting an 8% raise, but possibly I should save that money because I might need to give it to the government at some point. I don't want to give specific advice to plan on not having to pay it back, but I will say it seems unlikely that there will be a strategy for recovering this money, given the way that this is written. So, I like that she just moved over just for the kitten. Yeah. So, yeah. It is incredibly frustrating. Joshua was like, as I said, that was a rhetorical question. Yeah. I'm sure that if you are someone who's already getting Social Security income, then I'm sure you are aware that this does not help you. There's a possibility that this is going to kind of push Congress into passing something, because the big things that they were arguing and were far apart on were kind of done by this executive order. So there's a possibility that Democrats and Republicans can actually work together. The House and Senate can actually work together to come up with some sort of stopgap bill now, because this executive order essentially extended this out. So there's that. What big things that are huge question marks is what the financial assistance to homeowners and landlords is going to look like. Yeah, Rural pointed out that the cost of businesses to adjust withholding is going to be high. That's the other thing, is that like no clarity has been given yet from the Office of the Treasurer about what this is going to look like. I will say for general payroll providers, like, you know, Paychex and kind of the big payroll providers that people use, I think it's very possible that this is not terribly complicated to do, simply because turning on and off is not turning on and off eligibility for Social Security and Medicaid is a built-in function. For example, if you earn most of your income from a student job, like a work-study job at a college, that income doesn't have to pay Medicare or Social Security taxes. And so that is already a type of income. So the good news is that it's not like a huge and frustrating part of running payroll. The other good news is that generally small companies that use payroll providers. And so they go with things like ADP, Paychex. You know, very few places do their own in-house payroll. That isn't to say that they don't. I know quite a few like small restaurants and stuff where it's just, you know, someone in the back with QuickBooks that's actually cutting physical checks. But I think the good news is that most smaller companies do use a payroll provider that has people on staff to literally figure this out. So I'm hopeful it won't be incredibly frustrating, but the thing is like, it's still really unclear. Should this be kept here? I will also say this is only for the employer portion. So currently, employees pay half and employers pay half of the Social Security tax, which is why it's 6.8%. It's altogether it's 12. Altogether it's, what is it? I guess it's 13%. I don't know how to add. Let's just move on. I can't do basic math, clearly. I have a math related degree. So it is, there is still money flowing into Social Security fund, theoretically. Here is a couple key things. One, this is going to be a disaster for the Social Security Trust Fund. I have an episode that I did probably a year or 2 years ago, with an economist who particularly studies Social Security and the Social Security Trust Fund. What I will say, so as slated, depending on which projection you use, the money in Social Security Trust Fund is slated to run out by 2034. The current latitude says math related isn't real math. I did probably more real math than math majors did, because math majors do high concept math, and I just did a lot of arithmetic. Just a lot of calculus. So, the big thing to understand is that this recession is already taking a hit on Social Security disability. As it stands, we're at 11 point whatever percent unemployment as of last week, officially on the books. We were at 3% before the pandemic. And the kind of like general budget estimates say, okay, it depends on what type of recovery we have, but the way the Social Security system works is that current workers pay in, and then that money is paid out to people that either have disabilities or people that have hit Social Security retirement age, and then they take a check that is sort of paying them back for all the contributions they've paid in during their working life. And which is why you have to have a certain number of quarters of paying into the system in order to take money out, unless you qualify for Social Security disability income. And that trust is kind of being drained because of the age curve that we have. We have a lot more people now qualifying to take money out of Social Security disability, and they're living longer than they were at the time that the whole program was conceived of. So the ratio of people working and paying into the system is less than people that are taking out of it, right? So it's still only like, it's a 8-to-1 scenario or something versus a 15-to-1 scenario. Don't quote me on those exact numbers. I'm not saying there's more people claiming Social Security than there are working, but the ratio has gone down over time. That's largely because people are living longer and longer, and they can claim on it till the rest of their life. And you can also get survivor benefits and stuff like that. So, Sarah asked, is it similar to gutting USPS? No. Gutting USPS is a little more complicated. Gutting USPS is forcing them to have the money available to prepay their retirement benefits for a bizarre amount of years in the future. I think like 50. Don't quote me on that, but they have to have that money available. So it's kind of the opposite. The way that they made USPS have less resources to work with is by forcing USPS to have an amount of coffers available for pension for workers 75 years in the future. Okay, so in a bizarre amount of years in the future. So they kind of did the opposite thing to USPS, which is that like the money has to be available and therefore cannot be used in other ways, versus what Social Security has done, which is that they don't have 75 years in the future worth of money. So it is very frustrating. And Claire says, so basically they want USPS to be better prepared than every American company put together. Yes. I mean, they were essentially, they 100% created the situation. And they kind of want USPS to be better prepared. It's literally USPS is better prepared than any other part of the federal government. And the USPS is entirely self-funded. Unlike most other parts of the federal government that are funded from other things. So, what I will also say is that there was a payroll tax holiday in the past during the Obama recession era. The money for that payroll tax holiday, which was approved by Congress, that money was reimbursed from other parts of the government. So they put the money back in the Social Security fund. They didn't just do a payroll tax holiday. There was no plan for how to do that. So this is we've got two issues going on with the Social Security Trust Fund. So one is this payroll tax holiday, but two, all of the employers and employees that are out of work right now are not paying into the system. So a recession, regardless of a holiday, had already shortened the amount of time that the trust fund had. So that original 2034 running out of number, depending on how long the recession takes or whether or not it's a U or a V or a reverse check mark. We had that podcast or that live stream where I talked about the different shapes of the recession. All of those different recession types influence how much money is kind of on the back end and what the predictions are for the Social Security Trust Fund. If a bunch of people die, the trust fund needs less money. So, it's an interesting strategy. Some nice dark humor for you there. Yes, it was extremely, I'm not getting in a fight with Latitude about what is real math. So the payroll tax holiday, I'm not going to patently say don't save that 8%, but I am going to say it's extremely unlikely that they will yank everyone's taxes up by 8% next year. And you definitely aren't going to owe it at tax time in April 2021. If we even have tax day on April 2021, who freaking knows at this point? So, great news that came out of this. One, if you were worried about those student loans deferrals going through October, great news. Goes to the end of the year now. Two, the other great news is that some eviction protections are extended. However, they are very vague on what that looks like, but they will work out those details. And extra $400 a week to folks in the unemployment, to unemployment that have gotten it. That being said, there are still a ton of people that have seen none of the money from unemployment. DC in particular has really made a mess of their system. Oregon has made a mess of their system. There are a lot of states where people have not seen a single dollar from the unemployment that they have theoretically qualified through March. And there was a report that came out this week that said by the end of the year, if they do not come up with a way to get financial assistance to renters, we are going to be looking at a homelessness rate similar to what we had during the Great Depression. So Latitude says, and Congress went back on summer break. Yes, they did. It's great. Good system. How about I eat a donut now? That was a lot. Do you have more questions about the unemployment system? So here's the wonderful donut. I'm going to show it off again. Ooh. Ooh. Maybe now we can see if the donut's actually, since some people think it's too big. Look at that kitten. She's so cute. Does it taste like a Pop-Tart? I haven't had a Pop-Tart in a really long time. It's very fluffy inside. So it's super fluffy inside. It's like a hard shell. I like the flavor. I don't know if it's super Pop-Tarty. Yeah, Pop-Tarts are kind of flat. Maybe it's just not possible to really know if it's a Pop-Tart because your brain associates Pop-Tart with flat. Oh. In the middle, it's better. I don't know if there's like maybe more going on. Flat donut is what they used to call vegan donuts. It's like flavor colored. Yeah, that is true. It has that nice Are we melting back here? Just melting. It has that like kind of that very artificial flavor that you get in Pop-Tarts that is like, it's satisfying in its own right because it means that you're eating something really unhealthy. I lost part of the top of the donut. I want to save it. Who knows what else I just ate off the floor. Someone is being dramatic back there. This is great. She's not eating it or grooming the box. She's just melting. But now she's awake. This is delicious. That's my review. Oh. That one tasted like a Pop-Tart. Perfectly. I don't know what it is about some bites that taste like... I think you have to get the little, like, crusty top bits. Are we done? She's being very cute on the floor now. I'm sorry we lost our kitten. Any questions about Trump's executive bill or this donut? I think I'm going to eat the whole donut instead of a 2-donut break. All right. What are people up to this week that's exciting? Besides maybe getting an extra $400 a week. The red sparkles are like a raspberry. They're not like... Actually, they do look to be dried raspberry bits. I think they're real. Should you get a donut for dinner? No. You should get a donut for after dinner or before. Excellent question, Emily. Is him just sort of declaring this unilaterally definitely legal? No. The Democrats are definitely going to fight on this. I will also say that he blamed the failure to come to an agreement entirely on far left Democrats, which is, it was everybody's fault. It was all of Congress' fault. Get mad at all of Congress. Amanda is eating a rhubarb coffee cake you made. You feel very fancy. That sounds amazing. Don't mind me. I'm just coughing donut on myself. All right. My dad got a letter from the president that said, please donate $5,000, which seems illegal. Is that illegal? Well, for one, that's over the personal contribution amount to a political campaign. So that is a little, that could be campaign finance illegal. He can't send it from something that says like the office of the president. That violates campaign finance rules. But yes, a sitting president can call you and ask for donations. In fact, they work them quite hard on that. It could be $5,000 to a PAC, because PACs you can donate more to a political action committee than $5,000. So I bet it was like the Freedom PAC rather than the Trump reelection campaign. So, yeah, so I once again will specify not a legal scholar. It annoys me week by week during this presidency that I am not. I honestly feel like I should have just gone to law school so I can understand what is illegal happening in this administration. But that being said, it's not clear to me if this can be done by executive order. However, it sounds like people will fight on it. I want to believe that instead of getting caught up in legal red tape, instead, Congress people won't challenge the executive orders and will just pass bills to fix it. But, yes. Latitude says, I did not read this letter super hard. I mean, fair. Mac and cheese? I want a mac and cheese bake. Can we have mac and cheese bake for dinner?
Yeah, that's happening.
Okay. We need crumbs, though, to put on the top. This is weird. Now it's just watch Lily plan her dinner live stream. I like that everybody just told me what food they're eating. I was like, what are you up to this week? And everybody's like, here is the food I am eating. A spite JD. I would love a spite JD. Like, I desperately want a law degree out of spite. The problem is I also don't want $150,000 of student loan debt. Like, really desperately don't want that, because spite debt is less fun than a spite law degree. So I would have a law degree if there was a way to effectively go that did not require jaw-dropping amounts of debt. That is the main reason I have not gone to law school. Like, especially given how many friends I know that have law degrees and have triple the amount of debt that they make in a year after waiting several years to even find a law position after they graduated. I even know, like, friends that were in the military, so they got their law degrees for free, and yet or like without debt, very cheap law degrees, and yet still are not making like an amount of money based on, what we were sold the law degrees. I also considered getting a law degree in the UK, which would require 2 years of study. you have to take, because I have because the way they do it in the UK is you do 3 years of your undergrad in law. It's not like here where our undergrads are generally in the US 4 years and you spend kind of like a year doing general interest stuff and then like your major. Theirs are very focused. So you do 3 years of law and then you do a 1 year professional practice of law, and then you have to work as like a trainee lawyer. But you are officially a lawyer after you are officially a lawyer after you do that like professional practice of law, and that's kind of like the equivalent. If you do it in the UK, you get a wig. That is very true. So if you have a non-law undergrad, you have to take a 1 year like kind of pre-law school study, and then you can take the 1 year law program, and then you'd have to go on to trainee to like be a totally fully licensed lawyer or whatever. But it would be very fun. Latitude. I know a lot of people have been paralegals. Paralegal training is not very hard. You don't even like the certification. If you already have an undergrad or an associate's, is super fast and easy. One of the advantages of being a paralegal is that you can work for private detectives and you can be a PI. In my post-graduating kind of being really sick of working 3 jobs and still not even making poverty level and like frustration and trying to find a career, I considered being a private investigator and like had like talked to someone who was a private investigator. And this actually came from me talking to some like lawyers and being like, should I become a paralegal? And they were like, actually, being a PI is like way more useful. So I know that wanting to be a PI sounds really attractive. Here's why I decided it was not the career for me. Most of what you are doing, like the big contracts for being a PI are like if you're, working for a decent sized firm or even in a small office, what makes the most money is insurance fraud investigation. So you're like mostly trying to prove that people are not disabled enough, which feels fundamentally not like something I would feel great doing day in and day out. And then the rest of the time you are investigating cheating spouses. So yeah, it's like not really what I want to do, but it is cool because you can be a certified private investigator and it still does sound really cool, right? Latitude says you get 0 debt and get to work in the back of the office and never have to be yelled at in court. I will also say most lawyers aren't yelled at court. Like very few lawyers are litigators that go to court. Most lawyers do just work in the back of the office. Very few lawyers are actually litigators. Rural says, hey, with my new raise, my student loan debt is no longer 3 times my income. Congrats, Professor Rural. That's very exciting. But soon your loan may be gone, right? I think so. Latitude says, I know about the cheating spouses part, and you have to be good at long-range photography. No, you just have to be decent. You don't have to be good. You're not winning awards for your long-range photography. You just have to have expensive cameras with long lenses, and the lens does all the work. Oh yay, Rural has more PSL. I hope that it's a good PSLF story. Emily says they only get yelled at if the office culture is very bad. Yeah, like, I think that for a lot of people, the pressure of billable hours, which is a pretty big norm in the law world, most lawyers work on a billable hour system, not all, but I think that kind of pressure is not ideal. I think a lot of people that go into the law, like it tends to attract these like uber intellectuals that often don't like that kind of pressure of the billable hours. I work on billable hours because I work for a consulting firm. I am not a lawyer. I am just person that moves data around for bus schedules. And honestly, I do not mind billable hours, but I don't know if it would frustrate me. I don't know. I think that's because I'm someone who already tracks a lot of data. So Siren I asked, do you think the housing market will actually crash? Or should I get a house now, since the low mortgage rates, or it might just continue to go up with inflations? I think that when looking at the housing market at any time, you should not be too terribly concerned with interest rates. And you definitely should not be super concerned about the housing market crashing, because I don't invest. I wouldn't recommend investing to buy and flip houses. And that's the only time that you're going to care a ton about if it like crashes in the short term, right? The idea is that it will generally recover. And I will say houses have lost a lot of value in a lot of markets. The other thing I will say is that we are actually seeing a boom in the suburbs of people buying houses, and prices haven't collapsed that much. So, when looking at the housing market, it's important to judge if you think it is like a good value long term, more than you should be focused on if there is an immediate crash. At this point, I don't feel like I can make a bet on any single market whatsoever. Like, I don't know if the cat treat market is going to tank at this rate. Like, I'm not positive our country is going to be here in 2 years. And maybe that's like extra negative, but yeah. That's, anyway. I don't really, yeah. Latitude says, I'm afraid of going to court and the judge is like, hey, and then I burst into tears. But would you feel differently if you got to wear a cool wig and be a barrister? Barristers and solicitors are like way more clearly different in the UK. And here it's like there's a litigator and a lawyer, but they're both like one is just a subcategory of the other, versus like barrister, I believe, only happens like after you've been a solicitor for a while, and you can also only be a solicitor. Prices are high right now for houses in my market suddenly. Then it doesn't sound like a good time to buy. One easy way to kind of like look into it is if you look into like run some mortgage calculators based on what prices were at like the most recent low point in your market with what the interest rate was in January, which I think was 4.3-ish, roughly. And then based on what the interest rate is now, also bear in mind that like whatever the prime interest rate isn't necessarily what you're going to get. So your own financial situation as far as investing in a house has a bigger impact on the interest rate that you're going to get than just what prime interest rates are set at. So Kristen says, dang, just got here. I will watch the recording instead of watching the news about executive order shenanigans. Yeah, I think that it was like the first 40 minutes of the live stream pretty much covered it, although I think there was like 10 minutes of cat. So the middle half an hour. The very basics are that nobody is going to have to pay 8% of their payroll taxes, and theoretically it's going to have to be paid back at some point, but there's no plan for it, and an extra $400 a week to unemployment. So Emily says it's only $5,400 to get a paralegal certificate here. Not bad. That's insane. That's so much money. Hopefully, that's probably at some sort of for-profit university. Usually you can get them through community college for a lot less. So, I mean, yes, that is like much cheaper, but I would also recommend, Emily, look into what paralegals make in your area, because some people think that like, oh, it's a paraprofessional job and like it will pay well, and it does pay a lot better than like service industry jobs, but paralegal is one of those fields where the entry-level jobs can often not make very much. So Latitude says, I would be more embarrassed in a wig, I think. See, I feel very differently. I feel like the wig gives me power because you get to hide. Someone I know that is a barrister in England says they really like the wig because they like feel, because it's a wig and the huge robes, and they actually feel like it gives them like protection as far as like, especially from like sexism in the court, because everybody kind of all looks the same. And so there's less like judging based on your clothes and whatever, you know, they don't have to wear the like super fancy suits and stuff because they get to wear their like funny barrister outfits. So, Emily is not becoming paralegal. Okay. Well, I'm just saying, generally if people are considering it. Emily says, I am a tech doof and there I shall remain. This is the first time I've sustained worked in the tech industry. I technically work in the tech industry. It's sort of, I work in a tech related job, and the company makes software, but it makes software for government versus consumer facing, which I feel like is what a lot of people kind of think of as tech. And it's like in between government consulting and tech. Anyway, it's frustrating to me how much better I get paid for a job with less responsibilities and skills than when I worked in other industries and I was like in charge of a team and huge budgets and stuff. So yeah. Whew. Christine says, I will also watch the cat bits. Well, the good news is that this kitten has been here for most of the stream. I don't know why she's back up here, but yes. Emily says, it's bananas. The entire industry is pretend. Yeah, you may have seen this because I know that you follow me on Twitter, but I got in like a pretty large tiff with someone on Twitter the other day who tried to make the argument that the income differences between tech and other fields is supply and demand, and I went straight up not supply and demand. You know what workers are most in demand right now? Service jobs, packing packages right now, working in warehouses, working in grocery stores, and nursing assistants in home healthcare. And it is incredibly and agricultural workers as well, farm workers, because one of the big problems that we're having is we're having a massive supply issue because of the immigration ban on coming into this country. And there's a specific type of farm worker visa, which is how we run our entire food supply economy in this country. And farm worker shortages are not solved by paying more money. And there are a bunch of market inefficiencies in the labor market, and it is incredibly frustrating to me. And yes, anyway, had a lot of frustration with that person and ended up having to mute the conversation. But I did do some mansplaining to them first, where I sent them, so I got to the point where I was tired of explaining the basics of labor economics to this person who just used the words supply and demand, which is, I noticed that when people use supply and demand on Twitter, it means they know nothing about economics. And so I ended up trying to educate them on labor economics before they were taking up too much of my time. And I said, please go read a book on labor economics and then report back. And they were like, that's so mean. And I was like, I don't know. I think that I'm an economist who values my time at more than $0 per hour to teach you about labor economics. Fancy that. Yes. Latitude says, every time I go to my guidance counselor's office, he says, comp sci is a very smart field to go into. There are lots of jobs in comp sci. Yes, that's because they make up jobs in comp sci. Also, it's hilarious he calls it comp sci. Yes, I agree that telling someone to go up and read up on a subject is the opposite of mansplaining. But they thought it was mansplaining. So there's that. There's the possibility that they happened to author a great deal of labor economics papers and that I really was mansplaining to them. However, based on the conversation I was having, I don't think that's true. So yeah. Latitude says that's not how it works. Well, and also considering that the correct genders were not in place in order to make it mansplaining. But yes, they also told me they were on my side and they were upset that I had told them to read a labor economics book because they felt like I would get more flies with honey than with vinegar. And I just had a moment of like, who told you I was looking for any flies whatsoever? So, anyway. Whoever wrote the book you were going to recommend was going to mansplain to them, and we can't have that. I will say, the book I recommend was co-authored by a woman, but also a man because economics. Also not true of flies. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the proverb is. Something about honey and vinegar, right? I don't really understand it, but... Oh, Mythbusters disproved that. Okay, cool. I can go watch that episode. Well, I think that wraps. We're at the bottom of the hour. So I just don't understand. Emily says that is the proverb, but why do people want flies? So... Anyway, here is this kitten. I feel like she's very cute and very over it. So it is time to have a nice nap. Yes, I agree, Amanda. We are not frogs. We do not need to attract flies. Agreed. Maybe I should have done a better job of making some sort of commentary on describing oneself as a fly. Oh, she's so tired. I love that she's using the other cardboard box as a, like, upright pillow. Oh, it's about fly traps. Okay, that makes slightly more sense. But then, like, why does it have to do about, like, attracting people that you want? It's very, I'm very confused. All right. Well, thank you all for joining today and for watching me eat that extremely good donut. Next week, I'm definitely going to be either the pretzel or the everything bagel donut. So if you have strong opinions on that, feel free to vote as a Patreon member. And the show is back from summer break this week. So the podcast will be out soon. Lots of fun stuff. And if you're, I don't know, for some reason interested in what I spend on a month, I posted that on anomalily.net this week. So my July 2020 spending report is up there. Amanda says the pretzel donut. I don't know. I think it's like chocolate and pretzel. And so I'm less excited about it because of the chocolate. So Claire says, do we normally get to vote? I used to let people vote. And I kind of stopped because I felt like I was kind of bothering everybody with it. And I worked through all of the flavors anyway once we started doing it every single week. Claire, I know you want a chocolate and pretzel donut. I will definitely eat it because I love pretzels. But my feelings about chocolate are, I'm less enthusiastic about them. Do you all see this cat? Do you see this cat? She's so cute. She's the cutest cat. Oh, I think there's a possibility we're going to get a little cat cam to end out the stream. So thank you for spending a little bit of time with me on Saturday night and letting me completely change the live stream to just keeping you informed about what's going on with the Trump tax cuts. But for sure, I will also have an update on the podcast, so you will be able to listen to that once we get kind of more details. And who knows? This all could just get blocked in the courts, and it could be completely irrelevant. But yes, we are going to zoom in on the cat cam as the final shot, I think, here. Please take care of yourself this week. And wash your hands, wear your mask when you're outside, stay hydrated, and if you have a cat available, please pet a cat. They need their pets. This one is too asleep to pet. Does everybody want to type in what their, like, the most exciting thing they're doing this week is? Is it just going to be a list of food again? Did we switch to the cat cam? Are we switching to the cat cam? I don't know what's happening over here. Oh, there we go. She does know that we're talking about her. She is the cutest cat. All times. Oh yeah, new semester. Very exciting. All right. I guess that's exciting. Back to work. All right, y'all. Have a lovely evening. Stay safe. And I will see you next week. Same time, same place.